Bob loved to go duck hunting, and he had a good friend, Mark Freeman, and they went every Saturday in December and in February. Mark called Bob and said that he had had a cold and he didn't think he would be able to go that day. That opened up 2 spaces for Patrick and Ben to go. And they were so excited. I had a little hesitation because I always just thought about the guns and just what all was going to be going on. But Bob assured me they were just going to sit in the boat and really just look around on the lake. About 10 o'clock, I got a phone call from Bob, and he said, "We're doing great. We're it's real still and it's beautiful, and we're just out in the boat looking around, and everybody's warm, and we're all doing so well. So I just wanted to give you an update." And I said, "Well, thanks." About 11:30, he called again, and he said, "We're coming in. We're heading to the shore because the wind has started coming up, and so we're going in." And I said, "Okay." And so he said, "I'll see you in about an hour and a half." And usually they got home 12:30 or 1, and sometimes they would drive through somewhere to eat. But usually about 1, I connected with them. So it was maybe 1:30, and I started calling his phone and just seeing where they were. And I never got an answer. It just kept ringing and ringing and ringing. And then I just called till 2 or 2:30, and I never got an answer. And that was just odd. And I just started getting nervous and a little anxious, like what could have happened? And so I called Mark again, and he said, "That is strange. So I'll tell you what, I'll drive you out to the lake." We came up over a hill, and my heart sank when I saw our Suburban with the trailer backed up into the water, and it was still there, and I just couldn't imagine what in the world. Carrie and I prayed in the car just for protection for them, and after about 30 minutes, we decided, Mark said, we need to call a park ranger. So we got in the car and called a park ranger, and by then it got to be later, like 5 o'clock, and the sun was starting to kind of go down, and he took us to a kind of a pavilion to stay in there. And I don't know who all he had called, but all of a sudden a lot of people, responders, came in, and they were just talking among themselves, and so they started combing the shoreline and going out, and I mean, I just couldn't imagine. After about an hour and a half, somebody came in and said that they had found Philip, my 11-year-old, or they described him, and the way he's described, I thought it was probably Philip, and I just could not believe it. I was in shock. I really was. And then I knew that it was probably going to be a bad situation, because I knew Bob wouldn't leave one of them out. So I knew that probably something had happened to all of them. Then all of a sudden, the media came, news reporters, bright lights out there all around the pavilion, and I just started thinking, this is way big, and I just didn't know what to think or do. I know I was in shock, and friends were trying to comfort me, and I was talking to my Dallas family on the phone, and about 10 or 10:30, they couldn't see anymore, really, and so they looked some more, but I decided I just could hardly stand it. So I went back with friends back to my home. I just didn't know what the future held, and anyway, that's really that day on the 14th how my world turned upside down and my life did. So, I think a lot of it was God giving you just unimaginable strength. I just didn't know how I really did that, but I think I knew that people were there, and I think shock was still definitely with me, and I knew that people were helping me and comforting me, and I felt like I needed to be with them, and people were putting themselves out for me, so I just felt a need to be with them and talk with them and pray with them. And anyway, that's really how I got up, and my family from Dallas all came, and so wanted to visit with them and cry with them, and so that's really how I did. God gave grace that I just couldn't even imagine, and that's really, He found mercy on me. Patrick was found in March, and Ben was found in May, and so it was a long time in there that I didn't feel like there was any closure. I went to a counselor probably 3 weeks out that someone had suggested, and it was probably too soon. I just decided, no, I think I'm going to wait. But then Howie volunteered an hour each week with me, which carving out in his schedule, he carved out an hour each week. In the first few weeks, we really just sat in his office and just cried together. And then as the weeks passed, we talked about a purpose, getting me a purpose, and what the future challenged me to go day by day and find something to do, to serve, or something to fill my time. That was so hard because I didn't have a job. I didn't work. My job was at home with the boys and being a wife and mom. And I remember just thinking to myself, I'm not the PTA mom anymore. I'm not the homeroom mom. I'm not the baseball mother that I loved to go to those games. And that's what filled our time. All of the activities that the kids did. And that felt so alone. It really did. And I just was in despair of what was I going to do to go forward. And Howie helped me find a few things at church that I did, just volunteer things to keep me going. I had friends that did everything, lunches. I had people that invited me over for dinner, and some of them hardly knew me. And there was just so many people that did hands-on things. I will never be able to repay all of them, but it was just the body and the feet and hands of Christ. It really was. Well, Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, and for welfare and not evil, to give you hope and a future. And I just really meditated on that verse a lot. And also I just remember in Hebrews that His thoughts are different than our thoughts, and His ways are different than our ways. And I still could not explain any of it, and I never will know. We will never know answers on this side of heaven, but fortunately I just had His word and just friends that helped me pray and just look forward to time together. And they always thought that they reminded me that we will have a wonderful reunion in heaven. In my mind, I was thinking, we raised these boys in church. They loved Jesus. We felt like we were serving in church and doing all the things that we thought that we should do to have a Christian home. And I thought that would be so honoring to God. And I know it was, but I realized then that this world is broken. This world is not fair. And that was just a consequence of our sin and the fall. And that's what I just had to keep reminding myself, that there's brokenness all in this world. Well, I remember the night when I came back from the lake with my friends and we walked into the house. We turned on the lights and I saw their pajamas on the floor in the back of the breakfast room chairs. And it really dawned on me then, this world, you cannot take anything, any possessions from this world to heaven. When you're called home, you just go. And I just knew then that this world is a blink of an eye. We still live in it, but it is, and it's like a vapor. And it really did give me a new look at worldly things and possessions, how we don't take any of those things that we think make us a success with us. That we just don't. I do not see how anyone could get through this without being a believer in Jesus Christ and having that hope that you will see them again. His word is the only comfort that I could concretely go to. I knew that God never changed and He loved me more than I love myself. And so that gave me hope. I had friends and family that went above and beyond, and it was like Christ with the hands and feet, the body of Christ. That was a picture of the body of Christ coming and doing and thinking of things that I never thought of that I needed to do, or for myself, or to even just be able to get up that morning and carry on. And they would help me have a reason to get up. I think God was very gracious when He gave me so much favor to pour it out on me when I cried out to Him and I was in despair. He heard my cries, and through people, through my pastor Howie, who just was like Christ to me. He did so much for me, encouraging me and gave me reason for hope. I had a friends, Jane and Ann, that had a man, a widower, who had 2 little boys. Jane mentioned to me, would you like me to call Jeff, and at least at our age, being younger, that someone to talk to about even heaven or grief. He loves the Lord. He's been 4 years out. He could probably help you. For 3 weeks, he called me. We talked every night. He gave me scriptures of heaven and hope and grief. And it was just more than a help. It just gave me some understanding about this broken world and the hope we have. It was just really pretty instant that we had a connection, knowing all the past. And I know to a lot of people it seemed fast, for me especially, because it had just been a few months, but I didn't have anybody else to worry about their grief. I didn't have kids that I was going to have to walk slowly with and grieve. It was just me, and Jeff was kind enough to take me on and know that I would grieve my whole life just like he would. Jeff is a wonderful, godly man. He has a great sense of humor, makes me laugh more than anybody, and I thought, that's really cool that God gave me somebody that makes me laugh, because that's what I need to do in this life. We all need to do, but anyway, and the boys are precious. Andy was 9 and Jeffrey was 12, and they were just so kind to me and just easygoing, and it was just loved me and I loved them, and they just it was really kind of an earthly miracle that this happened from God. And it's all been good. It really has. That part, I mean, of course, I will always grieve and miss Bob and the boys so much because Mama's heart is just so strong. But this has just been God's answer for me for purpose, and it's been good.